Bueno, who's sitting over here. She'll be on stage in just a moment. She's running for a local office. What office is it? She's running for a commissioner. I don't know if she's going to detail that in her talk. I met her only a few months ago in Miami. I was down here for another conference representing Monero at the North American Bitcoin Conference, and that was interesting. A lot of shitcoinery and NFT stuff over there. But I met Martha through that, and she was interested in Monero, and she'll get into why. And I'll leave it at that. Martha, without further ado, you have the stage. Welcome to Monerotopia.
Good morning, Monerotopia. How is everyone today? Technically, we're Miami Beach, but we'll just call it Miami for today. My name is Martha Bueno, as Doug just mentioned, and I am running for Miami-Dade County Commission in District 10, which is way out in Kendall, nothing to do with where we are right now. But if you are local in Florida somewhere, I have petitions that I am collecting so that I do not give the United States government another dollar. I want to get on the ballot by petition, and they are in the back over Yasmin. Yasmin over here is selling some goodies, and so go visit her, and she has a petition if you'd be so kind to fill it out. So, Jose Marti once said, "One revolution is still necessary. The one that will not end with the rule of its leader. It will be the revolution against revolution, the uprising of all peaceable individuals who will become soldiers once, so that neither they nor anyone else will ever have to be a soldier again." 90 miles from our shores lies a country where there is no liberty, where the simple act of saying that you don't agree with your government can land you up to 20 years in jail, where growing your own food is an act of rebellion. This place I'm talking about is where my parents are from. It's where my grandparents were born and raised. You can trace my generation back, my family's generation back on both sides of my family. A place that was once the wealthiest and most prosperous nation in Latin America. I'm not speaking about a mythical place. I'm speaking about an island that is literally 200 miles from us right now, closer to us than our state capital. And that is how it happened. That place is Cuba. Cuba has been in the news quite a bit in the past year. 63 years since Fidel Castro's revolution, the Cuban people have finally said, enough. Enough of the brutal repression we face. Enough of this regime whose leaders live in wealth while the country starves. Enough with the forced exile of over 2 million people. Enough with the lies and propaganda produced by the Cuban government to pretend that the reasons why Cubans face difficulties in the United States is the blockade. Enough of the lie that Cuba's a medical marvel. Meanwhile, the average Cuban can't even get an aspirin. The reality is that Cuba is a slave island, and I don't say that lightly. The regime, which consists of the heirs and dependents of Fidel and Raul Castro, and a handful of others, decide the fate of 11 million people. Those who are in power live comfortable lives. Fidel Castro died with a net worth of over $900 million. His family in Cuba drive fancy cars, they travel around the world in fancy yachts, and they're guaranteed high-paying government jobs. For example, multiple of Raul Castro's family members are in the Central Committee of the Communist regime, the Communist Party. They call the shots for millions of people while everyone else lives in misery. So why am I telling you this? I'm here to remind all of you why we're here, why all of this matters. That reason, that thing that brings us all here today is freedom. We all want it. We all know how vital it is for the rest of our lives, because without freedom, we have nothing. Plain and simple.
Everyone here, I believe, fundamentally understands that the government controlling our currency is not conducive to freedom. The state deciding what we can and can't do with our bodies or how we can defend ourselves and with what does not make us any freer. Canadian truckers recently showed us that governments will decide to whom and for what reasons we can send our money. We are here because we recognize that we want freedom, and we don't just want freedom for ourselves, we want freedom for the entire world. And while many cryptocurrencies have good and bad sides, the privacy built into Monero has a tremendous value for human freedom. Right behind me have Article 143 of the Cuban Penal Code, and it states that whoever supports, encourages, finances, provides, or receives, or has in possession funds, material, or financial resources with the purpose of defraying activities against the state incurs a sanction of deprivation of freedom for 4 to 10 years. This is huge of why Monero is so important, so vital. And I get this a lot from Bitcoin maxis, and they're like, no, Bitcoin is the future of Cuba, and no, it's not. It's not, because of this law right here. And if anybody in that community is willing to spend 4 to 10 years in jail, then they are, by all means, continue to do this. But it is important to us that people in Cuba are protected. It's important to me. It's of the most importance. So many of you here might not be up to date on what's going on in Cuba, and I promise I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. But I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity in front of all of you guys to talk about my island for just a second. And you might be surprised to know that even though I just called it my island, I've actually never stepped foot into Cuba. I've never been able to walk its streets, swim in its oceans. I have never been able to go there. And even though I can trace my lineage back generations there, my oldest brother was born there, I've never had the opportunity to go. My grandparents, who stayed behind when my parents left, died decades ago. Actually, I think we skipped a slide, but it doesn't matter. Oh, okay. I never got the opportunity to hug them or grow up with them, hear their stories. I do think about them quite a bit. And then this is my other set of grandparents who left. They came to Miami to wait it out. You know, a lot of people here, if you come from other countries, you also came to the United States to wait it out, wait until things get better back in the homeland. And I remember my grandfather telling me almost on a daily basis, Martha, I'm only here until Fidel dies, and then I'm home. My grandfather passed away 18 years ago without ever being able to go back home. But I feel like I'm the lucky one. You see, my father was a political prisoner in Cuba. He was given a 6-year jail sentence for the crime of attempting to leave. Just got caught trying to leave his country. He realized there was no future and he just wanted to get out. A year into his jail sentence, my mom broke him out of jail. She's my hero. On his next attempt to leave Cuba, he made it to the US Naval Base in Guantanamo, where he was received by a soldier who said, welcome to America. And so I'm the lucky one. Back in Cuba, I have the rest of my family, everybody who couldn't get out, my aunts and uncles, my cousins. And so I can compare my life directly to the life of my family in Cuba. I've been able to start my own business. I've been able to raise my children. I've been able to go to bed every single night without ever once thinking, will I be able to feed my kids tomorrow? Not once has it crossed my mind. My family back in Cuba, not the same. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for my family here in the United States supporting my family in Cuba, they wouldn't be able to eat. And so what is the difference between my life here and theirs there? Freedom, the freedom to do the things that I want to do. So if you're here in this audience, I believe that we have this in common. I believe that at some point you've been red-pilled enough. At some point you've taken some inventory of the life around you and you've said, you know what, maybe government just really doesn't have my best interests at heart. You know I certainly did. And everyone's journey down that rabbit hole is a little different. But what I can tell you, the one thing I know with every fiber in my body is that cryptocurrencies will revolutionize the world. Specifically, I believe that Monero is the key to unlocking Cubans' freedom. And that is a big claim to make, so let's get into that. First, let me tell you how people all over the world are directly contributing to the regime that is killing people, that is keeps them in misery, And they don't even know about it. And I am certainly guilty of this, and it is called remittances. That is the number one thing we do for people on the island. We give them remittances. And as much as that regime and their useful idiots here in the United States like to complain about the embargo, the United States is the number one source of revenue for the Cuban economy and the Cuban regime. And thank you. There are nearly 2 million Cuban exiles all around the world sending money back to their families in Cuba every single month. Here in the United States, we have 1.3 million Cubans, making us the third largest diaspora in this country behind Mexico and El Salvador. This is Cuba's GDP, $20.5 billion, of which 6.6 billion corresponds to remittances in cash and merchandise. 6.4 corresponds to the salary of medical professionals abroad, which is slavery. Next one. And 7.5 billion corresponds to tourism and exportable items. Turns out Cuba's best export is Cubans. When I talk about Cuba, inevitably somebody will be like, but Martha, what about the embargo? To that, I can only say that the Cuban government has done an amazing job with their propaganda, which actually might make that their best export. But anyways, I digress. Here you can see the United States is one of the largest exporters of food and medicine to the United States to the tune of $323.5 million. Cuba, on the other hand, only sends us $2.9 million. But the only embargo that is happening in Cuba right now is the embargo the Cuban government has on its citizens. So back to how do we topple a dictatorship? There are actively right now lots of groups working on boycotts for hotels and travel to Cuba. It's a great cause, and I ask anybody listening to this, please, 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 please don't go to Cuba. You want to go to Caribbean island? There are so many of them, beautiful ones. Please skip Cuba for now. Cuba exports their medical professionals. This is a whole other topic, but it basically boils down to slavery. The doctors travel to countries that pay the Cuban regime for their services. Their passports are confiscated, and it's confiscated so that they don't flee, of course. And the government sells services for thousands of dollars a month. These doctors, countries pay thousands, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for a doctor, but that doctor receives less than $900 a month in salary. And that's if they're lucky. Again, they must leave their country, and they take their passports, and they're forced to perform. They're literal hostages. So finally, those pesky remittances. And here is why I believe Monero is the tool that Cuba's been waiting for. Remittances currently work in one of two ways. Money is sent either via mules who travel to Cuba and take cash and goods. And this is a preferred method. This is the way that right now people prefer to send money. And it's the only way to kind of sort of go around the government, around the regime. The other way is to use Cuba Pay or Revolut Pay. If anyone follows me on social media, you know, I've made a big deal about Cuba Pay because it was going to be featured at another conference. So because Cubans must exchange their dollars for euros or euros for their worthless currency, for the MLC or the peso, to be able to buy things, the Cuban regime has control of all of the stores, has control of absolutely everything. So in order to get Monero to work, we are going to need a two-prong approach. The first one is we need mass adoption. And that can happen very easily. The average Cuban makes less than $40 a month. A $5 to download a wallet, great incentive. So we actually can make this happen very quickly. The other thing we're going to need is a place where people can buy things. So they're going to need to be able to use Monero somehow, not only just exchange it for cash, they're going to need a platform. I envision something along the lines of an eBay where people can list their items and have it sold in Monero. And that's really great because those remittances that we send, we can send them to those wallets in Monero. So it's a very easy way, I believe, to just go ahead and adopt it. And since Cubans are fleeing the island in mass right now, it should be really easy. They're desperate to take whatever they can with them. They're desperate to sell their items because they make it to these other countries without a dollar in their pockets. They can't leave Cuba with things. They can't leave Cuba with money. They can't leave Cuba with their clothing. So if they can sell everything in Cuba and take something back, something that is digital, that they don't have to actually carry, and that when they get to that country, they will have access to some form of money, whether it be the country's currency or Monero, that would be amazing for them. It solves a huge problem. They can access their money, their currency anywhere in the world. The other reason why Cubans will want to adopt Monero is because they will be able to buy items being sold by those Cubans leaving. Those Cubans that are leaving want to sell their things, but everybody else is looking for things. It's very hard to find just the basics in Cuba. Oh, we went a little too far back. There you go. So what we need education in Spanish. I have been scouring the internet and I found a few good places, a few good resources, but we need more, and we need it in easy ways for people on the island to access it. Internet and electricity are a little tough sometimes, so we need something that is easy. We also need Monero. We need the money to incentivize people to download the wallet. And we need, as I said, a free market platform. So it's pretty easy. At some point, we'll also need a way for them to mine, but that's too far down the line. So I hope every one of you recognizes the face behind me. If you have not signed a petition for Ross, it's at freeross.org/petition. I urge everyone to sign it. Ross Ulbricht had a dream to create a free market platform. And with that, he gave Bitcoin its very first use case. He is one of the reasons why we are all here today. So obviously, I'm not comparing myself to Ross, but like Ross, I have a dream to free my island. And I hope that we can give Monero its first case use on how to topple an authoritarian regime. So if you'd like to donate Monero for the cause of Cuban freedom, this is the wallet that I've created, as well as the privacy key for transparency. Any and all funds will be used to spread the adoption of Monero in Cuba. Thank you very much. Patria y vida. If anyone has any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, I hand it back to Doug. Are there any questions? No?
Is that a View wallet?
Underneath it is the View wallet address.
View wallet, okay, great.
Yes. There's nothing in it currently. I hope to change that very soon. Thank you.